listening to the Ones Ready podcast, a team of Air Force Special Operators forged in combat with over 70 years of combined operational experience, as well as a decade of selection instructor experience. If you're tired of settling and you want to do something you truly believe in, you're in the right place. Now here's your host, PJ Team Leader, former indoc instructor supervisor, entrepreneur, and physician assistant, Brian Silva.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to another awesome Ones Ready podcast. This is Brian Silva. Here in the team room with me is Aaron and Peach, the great and mighty Peach. We got a really special one for you guys today. Not the giant Peach, but the mighty Peach. So we got...
So far, so good.
So far, this is going to be an awesome episode. Hey, I just want to reintroduce, because we're going to grill Peach for this episode on everything combat control and try and get as much as we can get, as much juice as we can squeeze out of them. So on this episode, we're going to be talking about everything combat control related. Peach is wearing his fancy red shirt for this. He wanted to get into the zone. So first of all, we just want to thank you guys again. You know, as always, you guys are the only reason that we do this podcast, and you know, we love doing this. We love talking to you guys, getting emails, and then any insight from you guys to help you guys do better in your careers, better than we ever were, and make sure that you guys are as successful as possible whenever you get to that selection phase and for the rest of your life. So if you guys ever need anything, always feel free to reach out. And then also, you know, go check out our onesready.com/partners. They are veteran owned and operated type of people that offer really awesome products that we ourselves use, and we want to just share the wealth with you guys and make sure that you guys know about them. Really awesome guys. So go ahead and check them out. That's onesready.com/partners. So getting back into the whole theme here. So we're talking about combat control. I know the last one we did was pararescue, but we wanted to get a little bit more of a deep dive into exactly what you guys should expect from this specific career field to help you guys just pick which one you're most going after. We understand there's a SWOE thing and there's a lot of other factors that go into play, but we want you to have your why whenever you're training and whenever you're going into the gym or working out with your buddies. Get excited about the career field that you're about to enter. So we're going to do another one. This is the combat control. We got the master, the legend. We'll say it. Peach.
We'll say it. The living legend.
Let's say it. The living legend.
Pound for
Peach
pound.
right here.
Pound
Even
for
though
pound, full of longitude.
He is a fan of self-deprecation, so be aware of that. But he has done a lot of awesome stuff, and we want to make sure that we get all the info from him about combat control. So just a little bit about yourself. I know we're going to kind of go into all this stuff. Can you just kind of reiterate where your path was where you came in and how you kind of found combat control?
Absolutely. So I originally came into the Air Force when I was 17 and then went to indoc from there. At the time, it was just PJs and controllers going to indoc. I originally came in as a PJ because I didn't know about combat control. While we were there, I'm wondering, hey, who are all these other students and who are these instructors that are combat controllers? Like, I just don't understand it. And then we had a capabilities brief by one of the controllers. He brought out airfield lights, he brought out radios, he brought out lasers and all that kind of stuff, and actually told us about what he did as a job and what combat control was all about. And so they said, hey, if anybody wants to change their job, right now is your one and only chance to do so. And so about 5 or 6 of us raised our hands and said, yeah, we want to switch from PJ to combat control because we didn't know about it. And so they let us switch. And then it was only a paperwork switch, and then we're on our way. And so indoc happened. I was on 3 teams at indoc due to the first 2 were injury, and then injury and a thinning failure by 2 seconds, but whatever. I mean,
I'm not bitter about it. 20 years later. Listen to your voice.
There was just that one instructor. You couldn't give me that 1 second.
2 seconds? Yeah. I mean, whatever. You're kind of slow on the click, but whatever, dog.
I was not that upset. I mean, I was upset at myself that I didn't make it, because a standard is a standard. So, hey, that's fine. But I guess it kind of set me on a different trajectory because what they did is they sent me to air traffic control school to then get better, get more training. And the plan was to go back to indoc. But what happened was the whole pipeline changed during that time. And I think there was only one other controller that followed on after me. I was the only controller in my class. I graduated. You guys probably know Chan or heard of Chan. He graduated indoc, and I was his number 2 that was supposed to graduate with him.
That's like the weirdest buddy comedy ever for like Chan and you to be rolling around just doing like buddy stuff. Like, somebody give me a plot line where you're both policemen and this thing's going to take off.
All right. So if you guys listening didn't know, about 20 years ago or so, the controllers and PJs went to indoctrination course together, and they branched off early 2000s, and the combat controllers, they made their own selection school called CCSC, Combat Control Selection School, and then the PJs continued going to indoc after that. And then now we have this new assessment and selection where we have the SR guys, we have the CCT and PJ all going to the same course and getting selected. So do you think there's anything, what specifically kind of things are they doing right with this selection course, and how did you feel, indoc versus ANS, is going to play out with the guys, or what have you seen between yourself and the generation that followed you with CCSE?
I think it goes back to training smarter and not harder. I mean, what we used to do at indoc and when I went through was, it didn't matter. There was no real prep course. There was a prep team, and those were for the guys that because we graduate people from basic training every single week. And so that once you graduate basic training, you may not necessarily line up exactly with an indoc start date. So you'd enter on prep team and they train you and stuff like that. Now that is at least for the new recruits, that is guaranteed that they get 8 weeks of prep upon showing up. So I think that's huge. We used to throw people in the pool and just expect them to know how to do underwaters, expect them how to clear a mask, do mask and snorkel recovery. We would get trained on ditch and don and the knots, but even then it was still like outside of the water, here's a square knot, here's a girth hitch with an extra turn.
The very first time I saw any of these exercises was at the event. I did not see a single YouTube. YouTube wasn't even a thing, okay? To get to the MEPS office, I had to print out MapQuest directions. Y'all don't know what it's like to have to print out MapQuest directions. Like, it's ridiculous. I can't even explain to you the sheer anxiety that caused when your dad was yelling at you to try to flip through a 47-page packet to get to that next right-hand turn. It was impossible. Anyway, point being.
Yeah, and the only knot that we knew at that time, before I joined anyway, was loop, swoop, and pull.
That's it. I knew how to tie my shoes. And I didn't, again, I'm the most boring PJ. Like, I don't do this. I'd never climbed. The very first time I shot a pistol, a handgun, was in the military, was in the Air Force. And it's not, I mean, I think like maybe I shot like 1 or 2 before that. Like I hunted, like I shot shotguns and stuff, but I didn't shoot. I didn't jump. I wasn't a skier,
Yeah. No, I mean, I skied and snowboard, but I didn't really shoot. So, but I going back to the question though, I really do think that we're training smarter than we were. I mean, how many people have we lost that would have been amazing operators and done some incredible things, but they failed pull-ups by 1 or push-ups by a couple? I mean, I get it. Yeah, exactly. So many guys. And there is, hey, a standard is a standard, but, you got to meet that standard. But at the same time, like, man.
Does 2 push-ups make you a better controller? I'm not so sure. Does 1 pull-up make you? Is that the line between you being a great controller and not?
Yeah, and what I kind of equate it to is, okay, so I've got 2 scenarios. I can have a dude that can make it up the mountain first and with the heaviest ruck and carry all the equipment, but once he gets up there, he's kind of incompetent. He's really fit. Or I can have a guy that kind of middle of the road. He's not going to get up there first, but he won't get up there last, but he's extremely competent when he's up on the hill. Like, I'd rather have that guy. Boom. That's just me.
Yeah. Slow and steady wins the race. All right, so let's get into this pipeline. So I know all the pipelines are kind of aligning now, and if you guys are just tuning in and you're trying to figure out whether you want to do combat control, so we're talking about going through, if you're not enlisted yet, going into basic training, and then after you go into basic training, you go into the prep course. After the prep course, which is 8 weeks, then you go into ANS, which is 4 weeks. It shifts around, so it's not exactly going to be 4 weeks every single time. They're changing around everything. I mean, this whole last year, if you guys are just kind of learning about the pipeline and SW, is kind of flexing back and forth, trying to figure out what exactly is right, what the formula is to select the best person. And I think right now they're thinking that it's continuously changing. That is the best, is to get people on their toes and kind of catch them by surprise a little bit, just to see what that person is actually going to do in a scenario where they're under stress. Anyway,
it's a living, breathing thing, right? If the instructors execute some kind of program or something and it works great, hey, we want to keep that. But if they execute something and it didn't work out very well, like we don't want that hanging around and being a part of the very next course. So they take it out and they try something else. Maybe it makes it 2 weeks. Maybe it makes it 4 weeks. Sorry,
my favorite part of this too is the same people that are like, oh, so many things are changing and everything's different. They'd be the same people that would be complaining if we weren't changing things and trying to make it better. If we wanted things to just remain the same, we would have never went away from the indoc model. The indoc model was great, but the indoc model had holes in its game, and we needed, just like you said, Peaches, like you're totally right. Like, is one pull up the difference between? I would want the ability to decide off someone's character, their competence, their ability to handle, pressure situations. I'd want some wiggle room. That's worth one pull up to me. You know what I'm saying? And I'm with you guys. I would want that guy that's going to get up that hill no matter what, and then be useful at the top of the hill. So yeah, I totally get it. And it's everybody's going to complain about change. Like, change is chaotic and it makes you feel like you don't know what's going on. And I got it. But this is change for a purpose.
Yeah. But I think it's important to, like you brought up, Peach, just discuss with these people that are listening to the podcast right now, because, straight up, we don't know that it's going to exactly be this every single time. So, get up for it. There are a couple of things that we do know, but there are a lot of things where you're just going to have to walk into, the room in the scenario and figure it out, because that's how you're going to be tested the best. So going back to the pipeline thing, we do the basic training, prep course, ANS, go into pre-dive, and then hopefully dive school if the pipeline lines up. And then what kind of goes after that as far as the pipeline? Beach.
So mine was just slightly different. So I went to air traffic control school, and then they changed the pipeline around, and then I ended up going to airborne and survival school, and then combat control school. Then I went back to a pre-dive, a 6 weeks pre-dive, then to Key West, and then the free fall school.
Yeah.
So that was all part of that new advanced skills training,
yeah, AST. yeah. Well, and like that's an important thing to note too, so that we've aligned the pipelines, and this applies to special reconnaissance as well. Like, everybody is going to hit all of these things so that you go through the pipeline in a logical manner together. So you'll go to that apprentice course, you'll get all of your other skills knocked out. Everybody will get, free fall, seer, for what am I missing? Dive, the survive, like seer, survival. That's it. So airborne, seer, dive, free fall. There you go. And then you'll go to your apprentice course, and then you'll get out of the apprentice course, and you'll meet back up, and we'll kind of talk about, where you go after that. But after you get out of JBSA, right? So as a combat control trainee, you get out of assessment selection. We know that we're going to have a pipeline that's roughly the same as our counterparts in special warfare, right? We're going to ride that pipeline essentially kind of like together. You get out of JBSA and you report to Pope. What's it like checking in as that very first couple of days as a new candidate? Because I know you feel good because you're off of JBSA. Like, you're like, oh man, I've made it. But then you get to somebody or you get to somewhere else, and you're like, man, maybe I didn't make it. What was it like for you as a student at that first assignment?
So the cadre I was expecting it's going to be full bore, like yelling, the whole deal, right? And they were very calm, very deliberate, very nice, and 100% lured me into a false sense of security, going like,
oh, I mean, hate to see it.
Oh, man.
First day on the job, Peaches.
Yeah,
hate to see it.
You were just strutting down the hallway wearing your beret. And you were just like, yeah. I made
it. Just Peaches, just 17 years old and happy to be there. Oh, man. 125 pounds soaking wet.
Oh, dude, man. So I, at 17, I'm short. Obviously, we've talked about that enough. And I still had some, I think I've had a 6-pack twice in my life, maybe. And so everybody at Indoc had 6-packs, it seemed, and I didn't. And I got made. They rode me hard for that. Rode me so hard for that.
How are you so little and no abs? How are you so small with no abs? That's what I would ask too.
Oh man, it was bad. But yeah, they 100% lured me into a false sense of security, and then I got my ass handed to me. I mean, and I can't even remember exactly what it was, but it was, I think it ended up in the pea gravel pit, burying myself or something like that. And that happened several times. And that wasn't just me, that was everybody. The cross trainees knew better, and the officers knew better. They didn't make that mistake.
No.
But a lot of us did.
Well, so you're sitting there and you're in, sometimes you'll be in a little bit of a hold. Like we try to get rid of as much like training time hold, like, you're awaiting training status essentially. We try to get away from that as much as possible. So hopefully your time was short, but then you report to CCS. So you get all the way through. This is kind of, if you look at the new model now, this is going to be at the end of these students' pipelines, right? Like they're going to get to CCS. What are those big events in CCS that always made people like worry? What were those things that you knew was going to be tough and you were going to really be tested?
So, I mean, without trying to give too much of it away, there are a couple of events that you'll hear about in the pipeline. And it always sounds worse than it really is. It kind of goes back to what we were talking about. Like, how do you finish a 2-year pipeline? You break it up into chunks. You worry about what's the immediate threats, take care of that, and then on to the next, and then on to the next. But the thing is that you will hear about events, events in the pipeline that you're going to have to do. And if like underwater's in your thing and you're going to have to do a 50 and you're only going to get one wall push off, that's just a little seed planted in your brain. And then that fear can just grow and grow and grow.
It's the worst because then you start dealing it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? You start worrying about it, and then you hear about other people, and heaven forbid. This event for us at the apprentice course was always the rope ladder with your full ruck. Like this was always a thing for whatever reason. So at the apprentice course for pararescue, you have to climb a rope ladder 35 feet, wearing 35 pounds ruck, along with your LBE, your weapon, and your helmet, into a helicopter to simulate, climbing a rope ladder. I don't know why, because the instructors will demonstrate this all day. Like instructors with like massive shoulder reconstructions, like terrible injury patterns behind them. They will throw on heavy gear and they will climb this rope ladder. But for some reason at the apprentice course, for all the time I was there, it was always just like, there was just this tension that you would feel it would start building to like the PE day. And all the instructors would be like, guys, are we doing this again? How many times this week have we climbed this ladder successfully? But you would always have those people that just, it got into their head, and then you would just see them and they'd start doing wacky stuff like halfway up the ladder. And then you were just like, this guy is 100% going to peel off this rope ladder and fall to the ground. Like that's absolutely, did you ever have any of those? Was there an event for you that you let get into your head?
No, not get into my head. I did. It's funny that you're talking about the rope ladder, because for me, what I had problems with, because as I'm rappelling, I'm top heavy, especially wearing a ruck, and they would not let me, because they were making fun, because they wanted to make fun of me. They were not letting me put my hand up on the lead, right, to keep myself up.
Oh, this is not.
So what happens?
Barreling towards the earth, upside down.
Just Aussie rappel the whole way down. You're good.
Yeah. So again, not hard. But they were just doing it to make fun of me. And here's how you handle that. Like, you don't get upset about it. You don't get pissed about it. You roll with the punches. You laugh about it. because getting pissed doesn't do anything, and it also shows them that they can get to you.
Yeah, I will say the funniest rappelling story that I do have. My friend August O'Neill, Brian and I work with Augie. We're Augie, so we're out rappelling and we're going off the 60s, and Augie goes to step onto the wheel of the 60s to set his foot, but the wheel wasn't locked. So he stepped onto the wheel of the 60 and his foot just disappeared, and he just slammed into the wheel with his head and then back over onto his back. So now he's zipping away from the helicopter rappelling, and he's looking at me directly, and he's already mad at himself. So he's looking at me as he's falling away, just like
he's thinking about the things you're saying in your head. He's gonna have to hear whenever he gets down to the ground.
It was all in slow motion too, because Augie was a pro, man. Set up like a pro, stayed out there, put his foot on the wheel, and he was just gone in a heartbeat. He was out of there.
But going back to your question, though, I guess the event that like stuck in my head about stuff wasn't necessarily like combat control school. It was scuba school and the 1-man, 2-man comp.
Okay.
That was
a fun story. That was the only event that I've ever had to refire with a chance of going home. Was 1-man comp for whatever reason. I completely screwed it up the first time I did it. I had trouble with that one too. Well, so that gets us to the end of your pipeline, right? So we're gonna keep it in chronological order for what the dudes are doing today. Man, you got to combat control school. You put that beret on at that graduation. What was that graduation like for you? Like that was like a dream realized, right?
Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing, but it was also kind of like, oh man, I'm done. But you're not done. That's the thing, is you think you're done. Yeah. And you're told by the instructors you're done. You're one trained badass, and you're gonna go out in there and you're gonna be better trained. Like, no kidding. I was told this. Again, kind of getting lured in. But hey, you're gonna be better trained than the guys that are actually on team because they're so busy they don't get a chance to train. And then you get to your team.
Oof.
And then
Oof.
yeah. And then you realize that you know zero. And you're not qualified to do anything because you're a 3 level.
And then I did have a couple questions about pipeline before we move on, because I know I get this question every once in a while. I'm sure you get it all the time, but ATC, is there anything that any guys should worry about as far as going to ATC or any of that kind of stuff? Is it mentally more challenging and people fail out or anything like that?
No, I mean, it is mentally challenging. Absolutely, it is. There's not a large attrition rate with that, though, because most of our guys, that's why we have the whole ASVAB thing, because we understand that the people that we're getting in have a minimum aptitude to be able to make it through air traffic control school. And then you add on, like everybody else goes to air traffic control school, and then they get to go home to go to their dorms, go eat, go hang out or whatever. We don't do that. We do air traffic control school, and then it's either before school or after school. We're going and we're doing 2.5 hours of PT, whether it's running, cows, rucking, rope climbs, like whatever. We're doing that because we want to get after it, and we still need to maintain a certain level of physicality.
Right. And I think that's a super important thing. I think we've said it a couple times before, but once you're in student status, then you're in student status, and everything that you do is focused on making sure that you make it through and out of that student status in, hopefully a manner in which you're carrying a certificate or a beret in your hand.
the shortest successful manner.
Because
you can make it short as heck. You can shorten that bad boy right up.
You can make it 1 day long of student status. But, the goal is to stay in student status and then focus on that the entire time, because it gets really difficult. And that's the grind that everyone refers to, is just like, man, I do not want to go and get yelled at and get treated like a student today. I recently had to relive that through PA school, and it sucked just being in student status, like, oh, I'm a student. I got to take the trash. I got to do this. I got to do that. But it is what it is. And, you got to live it no matter what age you are. All right. So you go from... Sorry, I kind of messed up the order that we were going in here, but let's talk about now. We're out of the pipeline, or out of CCS. You graduated, all that kind of stuff, and then you went into SATS. So tell me a little bit about what that was like and what you do there.
So I was the first class. I was in the first class of guys to go through advanced skills training. or what is known now as Special Tactics Training Squadron. So it was kind of thrown together, and the guys did the absolute best they could. The Carpenters of the world, the Mike West, the Greg Herricks, and those guys, they did the absolute best they could. They were just kind of thrown something, and they took care of it. So we miss out on a lot of training, but it was the start of something great. I mean, STTS is an absolute monster now, and they are training dudes to a level that is phenomenal, so that when we get them on the teams, they're not necessarily ready to go, but I mean, they are almost there.
Okay. And did they, just for everyone's clarification, I know for PJs in the pipeline, we didn't get our beret until after we were done with our apprentice course. Did they change it? Because they used to do it after they were done, before they went to dive school for combat controllers. So did they change that so everyone's kind of aligned in the same pipeline, or have you guys heard that?
I actually don't know how they're doing it now in terms of when they're actually giving them their beret.
It'll be out of CCS because they realign dive school. So they'll put everybody through the standard pipeline, and then they'll hit dive school, or they'll go to CCS. They'll get their beret at dive school, and then they'll go to STTS per normal. But they just won't have to go. Pre-dive just got moved essentially further in the pipeline. It got moved up to that pre-dive.
Nice. Okay. I just remember being at dive school, and I was like, these guys are like combat controllers already. They have all their berets. It's so awesome. Like, these are real combat controllers, but you're
actually like further along in the pipeline than they are. Like,
exactly.
They don't have as many schools as you do. You're like, wait a second, I only have this is like my last thing that I needed before PJU, and what are you doing? What's going on?
Yeah, exactly. All right, so I just want to throw that out there. All right, so once you're done with that stuff, you're done with STTS. How long was that school for you? Whenever you went, Peach?
I think it was 11 months. STTS
11 months. And are you a 5 level at that point, or how do you show up to the unit?
Yeah, so that's the goal. The goal is upon graduation from STTS, you are a 5 level, which, as we're going through, the 3 level is typically what you are upon graduating your technical school. And then once you get on the job training, then you become a 5 level and 7 level and so on. The whole point of STTS is to get all those line items that you need to get from a 3 level to a 5 level. That is the whole point of that, and the time that is associated with that. So most of the guys are leaving STTS as a 5 level. They may be missing a couple items, but it's generally not very much. And the whole point of that is to ease the burden on the operational unit so that the operational teams and the units don't need to spend as much time training and upgrading these new guys. They can just kind of plug and play, put them on a team, kind of vet them a little bit, see what they're all about, make sure that they're competent, and then we can move out.
Yeah, exactly. And then, that's a perfect stopping point because as you guys know, we asked before we came on and recorded this podcast, we're like, hey, hit us with these questions. Well, people had a lot of questions about, hey, what happens at your first unit, right? There were some pipeline questions, and we'll hit those at the end. But a lot of the questions were actually like, hey, when you get to your first unit, what are the differences between these jobs? What do you guys actually do? So we're gonna pause there, right? So in our little fictitious walkthrough of a combat controller's lifespan, we're gonna pause. We got to the unit, and I'll hit you with this one, Peach. What's the main difference between TACPs and CCTs? So we got these 2 fully qualified dudes. They just got through exactly the same parts of the pipeline. A TACP and a combat controller shows up at my door. What's the difference between those 2 dudes?
So taking it from kind of top to bottom, you've got big picture wise, every TACP that's going to come out of their pipeline is going to go to a conventional Army unit. Now that could be a normal infantry unit, that could be a light armor unit, that could be an armor unit, it can be an airborne unit or a mountain unit, but it is all conventional Army.
Right, and you can't come out of the pipeline and go soft TACP right away. Like you have to go to a conventional Army unit before you can go SS. All right.
Yeah, you generally have to have at least 1 assignment, maybe 2 assignments in a conventional aspect before you can then submit a package and do another assessment and selection Not like you did at the beginning of the pipeline if you were, if you happened to do that and then didn't make it through, but just a separate one. And then that's when they decide to then put you to one of the premier TACP squadrons, which is SOF, or you go to some of the STT, or not STT, Special Tactics squadrons, like where you're at, Aaron. So that's for TACPs. And their bread and butter and what they are so freaking good at is calling in close air support. Like when we had Roomba on, he was talking about, because he was part of a tank unit or an armor unit. So he's talking, when you're thinking tanks, you're thinking about a huge amount of space, tanks moving all over the place, and then he's utilizing air assets to weaken the battle space, meet the ground force commander's intent, all while not bombing a friendly tank. Extremely difficult. So when it comes to combat controllers, we're all soft right from the get-go. We all fall under Air Force Special Operations Command. Then you'll either go to a global access team or a flight, and then you'll focus on airfield surveys, demolition, shooting, driving, medical, all that kind of core soft competency skills. Or you'll go to a precision strike, which is then where you'll start to do that kind of joint terminal attack controller mission or that close air support mission and begin that training, because it's not like hey, you show up on a Monday and by Friday you're a JTAC. There is a lot that is involved with that.
Yeah, I had no idea how much went into it until I worked up here, but it's extensive, man. Like, and there's stuff that I'm just like, I find out new stuff and I'm like, holy cow, I'm still doing poorly. Still not doing a good job with it.
You never really get good at it. I just make it.
So we have these guys, we have these mission sets that take so much time and so much training, like focus to get into it. The question came up again, and we're going to answer it again. I wish Trent was here, but so you're not deployed and you're at home. What is the day-to-day like of a combat controller if you're not at home? We just laid out a ton of competencies, a ton of things that I'm sure that we have to keep up on, and you have to do sim rides and you have to do live calls, and oh, by the way, you still have to jump and dive and shoot and drive and medicine and all this other stuff. So on the day-to-day, what's it like being a combat controller if you're not deployed?
So Monday morning, show up at 0700, start working out for 2 hours. By 09, typically what we would do, at least when I ran my team, was Mondays and Fridays were kind of admin days, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday were getting after it training. So we would try and schedule 2 hours either on the front end or on the back end to make sure that the guys got a chance to train. That didn't always work out because, training events and whatever. It just
sometimes you're just like, you walk over to the gym and you throw a quick workout in for lunch. Like sometimes you don't get that time. It's just, you have VTCs and all kinds of stupid crap.
Yep. So 2 hours to work out in the morning, then you show up and then you start, if it's a Monday or a Friday, if it's a Monday, you're making sure that everything is lined up and ready for training on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, in case there's any things that need to be gathered together, like equipment-wise or last-minute coordination, stuff like that. So you're doing that. Maybe there's a jump that day that happened, we're jumping on the airfield on base or something like that, but it's usually pretty low-key on a Monday and a Friday. Tuesday and Wednesday, that can range from jumping, driving, shooting, demolition, medical scenarios, close air support, and that's just home station. If I have a so close air support is CAS. So if you hear me say CAS, that's what it is. Not for you guys, but for the audience.
Well, for me too. It was actually specifically for me because of the look on my face. You were like, Aaron doesn't know what CAS is.
So if I'm going to go on a CAS trip out to Nellis Air Force Base, generally it's 16 to 18 hour days. There is no working out. It's work out when you absolutely can. You're showing up if you're an instructor like I am, you're showing up, or a JTAC instructor, you're showing up 5 a.m. with the pilots. Your JTAC doesn't know what the scenario is, so you're working with the A-10 pilots or the F-16 pilots, whoever you're working with, to develop the scenario and meet certain desired learning objectives that you want to see or you want to challenge your guy with, or maybe there's things that he needs in order to progress in his JTAC upgrade. Then, you generally have a 2-hour ride out to the range. I'm briefing the JTAC at that point on what his scenario is. We go out, we have, hour and a half to 2.5 hours of air support, mixed air support of A-10s, F-16s, F-15s, whatever it is. And then we've got our 2-hour drive back. And then we start about a 4.5 hour debrief on what happened. Where we did good, where we did bad, what can we learn from this? And that is all professional development for that JTAC just to get his upgrade. So I'm just using that as an example. I got one more for you if you guys can hang on, if I'm not boring you too much about what I do. So the other thing that we do to touch on the airfields, and I know I've done this with both of you guys, the jump clearing team, right? So this can be done. It's typically not done in combat because if you're going to do it, you're going to do it with a large force. But this is great for things like, Hurricane Katrina, Haiti. I'm not saying that they did those during these, but if there is a humanitarian mission and you need to get on the runway to land planes to bring in air support, and the runway is fouled in some way, like there's debris or something like that, so planes can't land, and we don't have any rotary wing to bring us in, we'll jump. So we'll do a jump clearing team. At a minimum, it is 4 guys, and it's typically it can be all controllers, it can be a PJ, a CCT, an SR, and then some kind of team leader, whether it's a stow, a crow, or whatever, or a PJ controller or SR. But the first guy is going to push out a bike bundle. So what we do is we take the bike bundles or quads and we wrap them up with a bunch of cardboard, and then we put parachutes on them and we throw them out. So that first guy is the bike chaser. He launches the bike out or the quad out, and then he follows it. And that is at the front end of the runway. The next 2 guys are kind of interchangeable. It could be the team leader or the air traffic controller guy. So they jump out pretty much immediately after the first guy goes out. The last guy, though, historically it's a PJ because we need some kind of medical.
I'm the strobe man. Oh man, give me that big heavy ruck, baby. I love it. Yeah. How many panels? 76 panels. Put them in this bag. Let's go. Give me them lights too.
So the cool thing about being the strobe man is you're given.
There's nothing cool about being the strobe man. Stop trying to lie to these people.
You have your own little dance party at the end.
Like, right? I've never been. Well, get out of here.
That's what I'm saying. You get to spot if you're not a jump master, you get to spot your own way out of the plane if you're the strobe man. So as a brand new PJ or a brand new controller, that ain't too bad.
Get out. Everything after it sucks. Everything after you leaving that plane sucks. Well,
hey man, it's static line. It sucks anyway. It's static line.
That's a good point. I did want to bring this up because we did get some questions on it that I thought were good. But like, what with the GWAT winding down, with the sort of fight that we have gotten used to over the last 20 years, with that going away, what is a peacetime controller mission? So you just talked about one. I mean, the jump clearing team and going in for NEOs, for non-combatant evacuation operations, or for going in support of American citizens that are abroad. I think those are some awesome mission sets there. What are you excited about moving into this next phase for combat control?
So right now we are looking at what we can provide the battlefield short of conflict. So SOF in general, and this is not just us, we are supposed to be surgical and used for a multitude of different things. We are not a force that goes in massive droves to invade or go into big battles. We leave that to the Army and the Air Force.
Can I pause you right there just because we get one question all the time? How many times do you guys participate in direct action? Listen, guys, we're not there for direct action. Just like Peaches just said, surgical strikes, multitude of different modalities. Maybe it's cyber Maybe it's something that you don't even expect. Maybe it's a irregular warfare tactic that is meant to be employed only by small teams. If you guys want to be part of the premier direct action light infantry force in the world, the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Battalion of the 75th Ranger Regiment are taking people every single day because that's what those guys do. Like, they are the premier raid force. There's nobody better than the Rangers on that. If you want to go do direct action, I suggest you hit one of them bat boys up. Let them know. But sorry
boys.
to them bat boys. Sorry to go off on a tangent there, Peaches. But as you were saying, correct. Like, we're not meant to go there with a huge force. We're meant to go there, and we're to be a little bit more surgical.
Yep, exactly right. And that translates through all of our soft entities, not just Air Force Special Warfare.
Well, and then how long did you spend at the unit before you went to that first deployment? That's something else that, people asked is, when I get there, how long can I wait until I actually get downrange and get to see a deployment?
Well, I mean, when I got to my team, it was, I guess it was about 9 months. I went a year I could tell you, but I keep stumbling over my words. I went, no kidding, September 11th, 2002.
Oh, did you really?
Yep. That was my very first deployment over to Afghanistan. And then...
How surreal was that?
It was awesome. I mean, what's so funny about it is the misconceptions you have. And I think we've talked about this, and it's so embarrassing that I actually thought about this. But when I thought that when we landed, like, we're going to be in a firefight, there's going to be sand, the desert is all sand dunes, because I had never been to a desert before. I didn't realize that the desert is not much different than just every day.
Yeah, but, and then you lived in Vegas for how long?
I know.
And you're just looking around.
You loved
it.
You loved it.
I did. I do like the desert.
I know, right?
So I think that was a 4-month deployment to Afghanistan during there, and I did CSAR. And there's a really good story, but I'm going to save it for our next story time about that deployment.
We got to get J-Mac on for story time. Like, I want to feature J-Mac. He's mentioned it a couple times. We got to get him on here. We got to get BK Actual. We got to get some of these guys on here and get them to tell some stories.
But then Iraq kicked off in 2003. So I went, September 2002, went through, 3 months, came back, and they said, hey, don't unpack. You're going back over, except you're going to to Iraq this time. So we went into Iraq, and we were kind of staging beforehand, and then we finally got the chance to go in, and then I went into Baghdad. Stayed there for, that was another 3 or 4 month deployment, I think.
So just from your experience, because I know we get this question all the time, is like, what is it like to deploy as a CCT, PJSR, or whatever? And mostly, my answer is like, it kind of depends on what deployment you go to, because every single deployment that I've been on is totally different from the last. The people, the AOR that you're working in, the type of aircraft that you're coming in with, like, all that stuff is different. So from your experience, any other kind of pearls of wisdom, or you kind of feel the same way?
No, it really is all about, right time, right place, right team. Like one of the teams that I went, one of the ODA teams I got attached with in 2004, like, when I got out there, I was replacing a controller that had gotten broken ribs and everything from an IED, and the other guy in his vehicle was killed in action. So that team was hurting, and they were trying to recover from that. So they weren't interested in going out and taking it to the enemy. We did eventually, after they kind of healed and recovered, and we got another guy into the team and stuff. But it's right place, right time. And just because one place is hot this rotation, the next rotation, it could be someplace completely different. And then, you have times like this where we're in a drawdown and there's not much happening at all. So you just don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah, and then for you guys who are just brand new to what CCT are in general, yes, they'll deploy with Green Berets, Rangers, everyone else, every other force out there. That's kind of more of their job. They don't have a rescue squadron where they deploy as like a rescue team like PJs do or whatever. A lot of times it's onesie twosies that attach to a bunch of different teams, and then they group back together at the end, and they're just kind of like, wow, this is what happened to me. This is what happened to me, and they kind of tell each other stories and stuff like that. All right, so I just want to get that out of the way, but deployments aside, so you're kind of you're moving up into the chief role very soon here, and I know you don't like us mentioning that, but it's really awesome that you have been able to do that. Not a lot of people in the Air Force are able to do combat control, let alone be a chief in combat control. So it's really awesome. So what have you seen as far as other opportunities going to like 5 to 7 level? I know you did the weapon school thing, other specialty assignments. What kind of things can a young combat controller kind of plan out on their way up to getting to where you are?
Well, I mean, not everybody may want to travel the same path I did. I'm probably the only combat controller chief that is still JTAC qualified, and that just happens to be because of the position I'm in. There's no other ones. In fact, I know that. But maybe that's not what people want to do. I mean, a lot of people, I've been very fortunate. In all the parachute accidents, the IEDs I've been in, all that kind of stuff, I've been extremely fortunate not to have devastating injuries, at least physically anyway. And, other guys do. They get hurt, they get shot, whatever it is, and they can't physically go on, but we keep them in the career fields. They're just not going to be able to be operational. So we put them as instructors, or we put them in positions that they can still be very beneficial to the force. That's what I would say. And also, just a little bit, this is probably, I think this is in line with what you're talking about, but I'd also look for opportunities to control your own destiny or try things that you may not have considered. Because though it may not be sexy on the surface, it could actually end up being a really awesome career move, whether it's the actual mission you get to do, the job you get to do, the people you get to work with, the people you get to meet. It can open up a whole lot of different doors for you, even if it's not that traditional route, because I have not followed the traditional route for a combat controller.
All right. Always good advice. What about the next 10 years? I know there's been plans for like the 2030 vision, all that kind of stuff. And we talked a little bit about what pararescue is going to be doing as far as like, low orbit type of stuff. And they're talking about some really kind of out there type of things. Is there anything that you've heard on the horizon as far as mission sets or capabilities for combat controllers? Because I know also with the SR stuff, they're talking about the SUAS, and then the some of the electronic warfare type of stuff. So anything like that for you guys?
It's all moving to digital type stuff. So that digital type warfare, it's not to say that we're not going to still be kicking in doors and shooting people in the face and that kind of stuff, because there will probably always be a need for that. But as we start entering the digital space, and I don't mean that, hey, we're going to be coders or hackers or anything like that. I mean digital as in... You're
in Air Force Special Warfare, better learn to code, dog.
Yeah.
Better figure it out.
Well, see, now we're going to get flagged for saying that.
That's the purpose, man. We've been trying to make this move to Parler for days, and this is it.
But by digital, I mean, and we've already started. You guys probably already run around with ATACs on the Android Tactical Assault Kit, right? That's just one piece of it. We start adding in radios that are they're radios, but they're actually more like terminals, like computer terminals, that are able to link in with the aircraft. I can see what they're seeing. I can see their icon flying around. I can put a point on a target and then hit send, and it sends an icon and all the targeting data to that plane. And now, instead of me, tripping over my words like I tend to do and messing up coordinates or anything like that, he or she's got a digital in their cockpit, and then they can target off that. And it also shows my own position without me even having to press anything. So they know, like, okay, the good guys are there. I need to make sure that all my ordnance goes here. So it'll hopefully alleviate fratricide as well. But the digital space is where we're going.
Yeah, and it just speaks to the new generations as well, to the Gen Z and the generations that follow after. They've had that technology integrated in everything that it is that they do. It's completely earth shattering when you play with the ATAC and you actually use it for the tool for everything that it can, where you're getting wireless updates from your teams and you can see Blue Force picture and you can see attach and detach everywhere in your area. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely insane.
And you guys as PJs, okay, so we get the video downlink as well, so we can see what the aircraft's seeing too. But you guys, and I don't know if you're tracking it or not, or maybe you already are, but you guys are getting a version of that, the PJs are, where you can then link up different Bluetooth nodes to each of your patients, and you can monitor their vitals on
You know what the name is? It's got a great name. Bat Doc. Dun, dun, dun. It's no kidding what it's called. Yeah, but it's actually it's super duper cool. I'll throw a link to it in the description or whatever. But no kidding, it almost has like a football, like a quarterback football sleeve, but it's digital, and you can if any of your patients go outside of the parameters that you've set for them, it'll blink red. You go over and you can be like, hey, hold on, what's going on with patient 3? So I mean, it's pretty slick.
It also makes handover from PJ to medical provider a lot easier too, because that medical provider also has that, and it's just a real quick, and now they've got everything.
Yeah. And you can push it forward over the horizon too, which is pretty dope. So, man, we hit a lot of changes right there. We just talked about how many things have changed between when you and I were in, but man, you're all the way at the tippy top, and I love how awkward it makes you feel. But you're an E9. There's less than 1% make it to E9. I don't know what percentage make it to combat control E9, but I know it's less than 1%. So especially with this, like this is our thing now, this thing of ours. What would you look back and what would you say? All right, I wish I knew this before I came in.
Okay, so if I'm going to talk about physicality stuff and preparation, I wish I knew about rucking, and I wish I worked on grip strength. Those are the two things that, for me, I wish I had worked on. In terms of my entire career, I would be more present in the moment and stop worrying about stuff that happens later on. I would just enjoy where I'm at, cherish where I'm at and who I'm with, because you never know when that person's going to be gone. You also never know when you're going to separate from that person and not see them for another 10 or 15 years. So enjoy those times that are in the pipeline where you are sucking, and it will suck. There are times that it's going to suck. That's why we have it.
Oh yeah.
There's still goodness in those moments. There are still funny parts. There are still times where you're hurting right next to the dude in front of you or beside you, and it's awesome. It really is awesome. So don't think that you're a victim and you're just getting hit on. Like, it's amazing. And I was just on a Zoom before this with a couple of guys, and they're leaving in about 3 months, and I'm kind of envious of them because I would love to go through that again and love to have the career that I've had and do it all over again.
Well, and the friends that they're about to make, like the times that they're going to have, like there's no better bonds than built through that adversity, like that. Absolutely. And you hit the nail on the head. It's just, how bad do things suck right now? This is terrible, but that's where you make your best friends. Like those end up being the funniest stories, Yep. So we did put it out there beforehand. We're like, hey, throw us a bunch of questions. We baked some of those questions into the talk that we've already had there, so we're not going to hit those. I'm going to hit you. I'm going to open it up, just a couple rapid fire questions. Brian and I are going to throw some at you here, so listen up for your question if you're from Instagram right now. Number 1, what does it mean when combat controllers say first there?
Well, generally it means that we are the first there. I mean, so if we're going in on an airfield humanitarian mission, look at Haiti, look at Katrina. I mean, granted, there were PJs there with us. We all went in first, but with Haiti, Puerto Rico, Panama City, whatever, or Tyndall Air Force Base, first there, because no one else can get in unless we happen to have a bunch of helicopters. Nobody else can get in until we are able to clear the airfield.
Nice. I like this one a lot. So why do the varsity teams, quote unquote varsity teams, all the people that are higher tiers want CCTs on their team in order to do all the things that you CCT do? Why don't they just hire their own guy or make their own specialty?
So they do, right? Those guys do make their own JTACs, if we're only going that JTAC route. But typically, we are still better JTACs. Typically, I know there's some anomalies, but typically we are. I know. I said it. No,
how dare you?
Get some heat for that.
How dare you put it? How dare you put a very, very calm adverb out there? How dare you? Now we have to fight with whatever meme page they have. Ugh.
So we are just typically better JTACs than their own organic forces, and their guys love it. They know that we're better than them, and believe me, they would rather pick up a rifle and be on the door and let us do what we're there to do. That's typically what it is. But
got it.
I mean, yeah.
So how much cross training do controllers get? Like as far as medical or ropes? I know it's not going to be on par with the Jays, but how much cross training have you been a part of? I mean, I'm asking you this softball question because I've been there. I've been in the same tent with you and on the same jumps and, a bunch of the same training events. But how much cross training do controllers get when they get to their units?
A lot. I mean, we obviously PJs are going to do a lot more medical stuff than we do, but, on some of that advanced medical stuff, guess what? We're right next to the PJs, and we have the PJs instructing us, as well as our flight docs and stuff like that. They're instructing us on how to do stuff. Ropes, I talked about that Norway mission. There were 2 controllers, 2 PJs on that. The 2 PJs set up the rope system and went down the cliff. What if something went wrong?
Yeah.
As a controller,
you guys got to know how to save them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, can I set up a 3-point? No, I can't. But I tell you what, you can, and then you can tell me how to save you, or you have trained me at least to know how to jerry rig something and then get you guys back up. So I do know how to do that. So we do a lot of some of that cross training.
All right. What about personality wise? I know it's hard for you guys to tell what CCTers are like because you only know Peach, and he's like the nicest person on the face of the planet. He's always smiling and having a good time and everything like that. But a lot of other CCTs that people have met are kind of on the angrier side of things, and people
they're very grumpy. I got to be honest, they're very grumpy Peaches.
So, keeping that kind of thing in mind, is there any reason why CCTs might be so angry? And then second question is there a prerequisite number of tattoos that you have to have in order to become an
All right, listen. Here's what you guys are going to need. You don't need to do all this physical preparation. You're going to go out and you're going to get yourself a motorcycle, preferably all black. You're going to have a colored do-rag, and you're going to have that on your jeans somewhere. Full sleeve tattoos. You're going to listen to nothing but 70s rock. You're going to have a pistol on you at all times. No one is going to know why. You're going to do things that don't make sense. Peaches, are there any other misconceptions?
Some kind of obscenity also. So make sure
yes, absolutely. Right. And you have to be dressed like a 50s greaser. That's the other one.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so there are misconceptions that'll take this thing from being PG-13 to, NC-17 or rated R. So I won't go into those.
Right, yeah, fair enough. We don't want any team room fights. No team room fights, dog.
Nope, I don't want to incriminate anybody. I don't want to do anything like that. We do, historically, I guess we really like to fight, especially in bar fights. I'd say that's accurate, too. Not necessarily me, but... yeah, we get in a lot of bar fights, it seems like.
I won't incriminate myself. I won't say that I've ever been a part of any of those things. I will say, though, that's probably true. That's probably it.
All right, Peach. Any other words of wisdom? Last thing, I know we always do this for everyone else, but, just for you, combat control-wise, anything else that you think, in your own heart helped you get through selection and get through all the stuff that you've been through? What would you try and implement and let people know that they should try and carry through?
So I think I've said this before, but every single one of us before we came in said, hey, we told our family, we told our friends, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go be a PJ. I'm going to go be a combat controller. And then we kind of just leave it at that. When you are in your darkest moment and if you consider quitting, or if you are like, man, at least self-doubting, I don't know that I can do this. Imagine having to go back to your family and your friends and tell them, hey, when it got hard, I quit. I couldn't do it. I gave up right there. And I know Brian and Trent, at least, because you don't get many quitters at PJU, Aaron, but at least for Brian, I know you've said it before. Almost as soon as those guys come out of the pool or wherever they quit and they hit that horn and they're standing there with their paperwork saying that they self-eliminated, they regret it immediately, and it's hanging over their head for a long time. Am I incorrect in saying that?
Failure isn't hell. Regret is hell.
Yeah, 100%. I've seen guys just, bawl their eyes out for days. Every time I see them after that, I always try and talk to people about the rest of their life after they quit and everything like that, because you do get a lot about yourself and you find out a lot about yourself by going through selection and just being a part of that teammate, and it carries on through the rest of their career. So it is beneficial, even, those people that didn't make it all the way, but you see that instant feedback of like, man, I let down my team, exactly like you said, my parents, all the people that I told that I was going to do this thing. I don't know how I'm going to look myself in the mirror, how I'm going to, go home and tell my family exactly what happened, because everyone's going to ask, it.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you going to do?
Yep, exactly. So for those folks that are out there, just remember that. Remember that if you quit, you are going to have to tell everybody you quit, unless you want to be one of those punks that say you got hurt just as a cop-out.
Oh, don't be a turd. Don't be a turd, says Peaches. What's up?
Sorry, that may have been a little bit too much, but whatever.
Oh, yeah. So many guys. I was a PJ once. Oh, yeah, what happened? Well, yeah.
I mean, I went out on my own terms, bro. Like, I didn't want to do it anymore. I would have been a controller, but, like, I don't know, man. I just felt like they didn't really understand me. That's cool. When'd you punch out? Week 2, bro.
See, what happened is he got in my face, and I was going to hit him. Right. Okay.
Right. If this was such a good episode, if you don't close it up before it goes off the rails right now, I'll never forgive you. You've got to, man, hit me with a recap. Big dog.
All right. Taking it from the top. All right. So, yeah, we took our own legend Peach to take a little time out of his day to talk about specifically combat control. And as you guys know, we're always here for you guys to answer any questions. Peach's answers all the questions in the inbox, same with all of us. We want to make sure that you guys have the correct information that's out there for whatever career field you're going to. So like I said, we're going to be doing episodes like this for also SR and all the rest of the stuff. So make sure you guys go check those out if you're trying to differentiate between which one you want to go into. So, from the top, the chief walked us through kind of top to bottom as soon as you enter the Air Force, all the way up until the day that you're about to retire, kind of all the opportunities that are involved, why those tier 1 units always want combat controllers to be a part of their teams, and what the specialties are that you might look forward to if you are having a long career within combat control, and then other ways that you might want to go. Of course, Peach doesn't want you to take his route, which was non-traditional, to get up to the chief level, but there are so many opportunities out there for not only CCT, but all the rest of the guys that are in the SW career fields to continue to further their skills and make sure that they are, tip of the spear kind of guys. So make sure you guys like, subscribe, and if you guys have any questions about these episodes, you can always hit us up on the Instagram, and then also at info@onesready.com. We're always answering your emails there. And then go out there and earn each breath. And if you like the episode and you like the podcast, make sure you go and go to Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star review, and leave a comment. We really appreciate it. So thanks again for listening. We'll catch you guys on the next episode. Earn each breath. Later.
Train hard. Late.